Oh, well, it is 26 degrees Celsius in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. And these days, it would seem the sun seems to take its pretty time coming up in the Federal Capital Territory as the haze from the Harmattan begins to settle down. I don't know if you noticed that this morning.
I did, and I'm really excited about the fact that the cold is actually here now so that we can get over this hot season that we're in. Welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Indeed.
I'm Kayla Megwa and
I'm Malcolm Ogunyusi, but I think that Kayla, don't get too excited. The sun only takes its time in the morning. When it comes out,
it comes out.
It comes out. So welcome to the program. We are going to be taking you through a number of things as the developments continue to rest around security issues right here, not only in the Federal Capital Territory, but across the country, because a number of people are still keeping tabs on what is happening with the children in Niger State. We also saw yesterday the confirmation of a new Chief of Defense, Minister of Defense for the nation. He is General Christopher Musa, the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff. And I think that was one nomination that a lot of Nigerians unanimously welcomed. But here's how the screening went down yesterday at Nigeria's National Assembly.
Lawmakers reconvene amid an air of anticipation as President Tinubu's nominee is expected to appear before lawmakers in the upper chamber.
This was the resolution.
A correspondence from President Tinubu seeking confirmation of the ministerial nominee is read.
Members from the Northeast.
The Senate relaxed its rules while dissolving into the Committee of the Whole as it admits the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, into the chamber. The minister-designate begins with a brief background in his opening remarks.
I am General Christopher Musa, retired, the 18th Chief of Defense Staff, Armed Forces of Nigeria. I want to assure you we're going to work united as we did when I was the Chief of Defense Staff. The important thing is for us to take the ownership of the challenges confronting our dear nation.
As questions began pouring in, lawmakers sought to know how he intends to tackle the issue of terrorism and rescue of the remaining children in captivity.
And how can you assure us that with this nominee or with this nomination that we are sure that you'll be able to work with a team under you to ensure the release of those children and to give Nigeria a better image?
So, sir, we're going to make sure that we do a whole of society approach into addressing this issue of kidnapping of school. No indolence, no act of cowardice will be entertained. We're going to make sure that we follow them critically to see what they are doing from the commanders down to the troops. I was wondering how the general himself was alone when he's supposed to have his own troops with him. So there are questions that need answering. And I can assure you, sir, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We'll find out what happened, who are those involved, including that one for the children at Maga. Having served 39 years all through my career in the armed forces, we have seen what is going on, we have understood what is going on, and we know what we need.
After a question has been proposed.
Tension, however, rose in the chamber when a lawmaker moved a motion seeking the swift conclusion of the confirmation process. The motion was immediately met with strong resistance as several lawmakers objected, insisting that the nominee must be further interrogated. The chamber quickly became rowdy as senators demanded additional engagement. After minutes of disruption, the Senate's president rose, an action signifying a call for order.
If you're a senator, you will know this. We have not yet asked him what his response will be to Donald Trump, the president of America. He is not just anybody. Chief of Defense Staff, a nominee for a Minister of Defense of a country, and you stand up and say you should take a bow and go, with so many questions on the mouth of Nigerians.
The 58-year-old former CDS, who is not oblivious of the weight of expectation by the lawmakers, is further grilled.
Many distinguished senators remind us that people know where these terrorists are. They know their roots. And in any case, if they didn't know them, how do they negotiate with them?
Why are we
seeing these bandits with super sophisticated guns, and our officers are confronting them still with AK-47.
There are still a lot of gaps within the armed forces that is also mitigating against them be able to achieve success fully. For whatever reason, we must stop the killings. Nigerians must not be killed, or anyone in Nigeria must not be killed for whatever reason. We assure you that we're going to be very firm in all we are doing. And everywhere we make sure that recruitments are going to be thorough. And again, it brings you back to a database. So it makes it easier. If somebody comes for recruitment and has a number that you can check and see everything he's telling you, it makes it a lot easier.
He underscores that negotiations with bandits is unacceptable. The nominee is then asked to take a bow and leave. Subsequently, the Senate approves and confirms the ministerial nominee.
Will the Senate now approve the nomination of General Christopher Musa for appointment as Minister of the Government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Those in favor say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Earlier, the Senate passed through second reading the bill seeking to amend the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act to classify kidnapping, hostage-taking as acts of terrorism. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And precisely that's where we're starting this morning. We have Laolu Akande with us. He's a former presidential aide and also the presenter of Channels Television's Inside Sources. Mr. Akande, it's good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Good to see you guys.
I'm sure you must have been monitoring very vividly or very keenly the screening of General Musa yesterday. And were you surprised when he was nominated by the president as a new Minister of Defense?
Oh well, I don't think I was surprised when it was announced, because you will recollect that in the public space there has been this advocacy to do something about what is going on, specifically the headship of the Ministry of Defense at a time like this. And I also know that quite a few of the president's associates have been pushing the idea to the president. We've also heard the story of the governor of Kaduna State, who actually also told the president that, General Musa is the kind of person that ought to be in charge if we want to get a retired general. So I wasn't surprised. I was just impressed by the fact that the president has kind of returned to a better understanding of the problem by the fact that he brought Musa back. Because what has happened is that the president has brought Musa back. He had lost out in some Aso Rock power games, which was what led to his removal as the chief of defense staff. And to have the president bring him back shows that clearly the president has seen the value of somebody like Musa, who understands the challenges, and he's been very frank about it. We actually know that he believes that it's important to deal with the terrorists not by negotiation. You got to, his own view, like we have seen, is to annihilate them when you have, bring them to their knees, not negotiating with him.
It's been frank.
With them, sorry.
Some people say it's been frank and vocal because he hasn't also, hidden under any shadow or behind a finger. He has been quite, forthcoming with the media, not just only local media, but also international media. Do you think that advantage also helps? Because it would seem that in the place of the Minister of Defense, you need somebody who not only has a very good background in security, you also need somebody who understands the politics.
Yes, and that's the point, even though it was the politics that had been responsible for his removal. But I think you're right. Yes, he understands the job, he understands the issues, the real challenges that we're facing, he understands it. And he also understands that he has to explain, what is happening to the media. I agree with you, but for me, the most important thing, or the more important thing, is that the president has started something that is commendable. It seems to be getting his bearing right. The return of Musa indicates that the president is getting his bearing right. But other things have to happen. Matawale should not remain in the Ministry of Defense. You know, if the president loves him so much, he can move him elsewhere. If you remove Badaru, then you got to remove Matawale, because there are questions, you know, that Matawale has not answered. You know, and now to enable General Musa do the job thoroughly, we don't need a Matawale, you know, hanging behind him. It
would seem like you've taken that question right out of my mouth, because I know that Killer was going to come in there. But
that was actually what I was going to say. The absolute issue has always been how Christopher Musa is going to deal with the politics of ransom payment. Because whether people want to admit it or not, whether people are hiding behind the finger, I like that phrase, hiding behind the finger. No matter how we want to be able to paint this, these ransom payments have been going on to these bandits. Now, seeing that Christopher Musa is someone who does not agree with this, how is he going to handle that politics, especially in places where they've been doing this for years?
Yeah, the first thing that, and we have to be very frank, and this is nothing personal against Matawale, you know, he has to leave that ministry, you know, because Matawale has a number of questions that he has not addressed. Look, Governor Dauda Lawal has accused Matawale openly. I mean, so that's the governor who took over from Matawale. You know, and we're not saying that whatever he says is actually what happened, because we don't really know so much. But if you have a governor, you know, making an allegation, it requires further investigation. So and based on what we know, like you said, that there is so much ransom payment negotiation, you know, although they have denied it, but hey, we all know, I mean, Governor Rufai said it here on our channel, you know, that it is from the office, it's from the presidency, and, you know, these things are happening. So we hope that Matawale would not become an obstruction to what General Musa is sent to do.
It's a very interesting dynamic there, because another school of thought is that it would be good to have both of them. The politician who understands the nitty-gritty of all of that mess, and then the person who's hard on terrorists. That both of them would make a good combination to be able to address this issue from whatever angle it needs to be addressed from.
I think the politicians, you know, who we have to play that role, they don't necessarily have to be in the Ministry of Defense.
Okay.
You know, it's important for us to let the Ministry of Defense be led by a general, which the president has done, but don't bring any kind of confusion. Look, I mean, I've been in government. I know the tensions that happens when you have two ministers. You know, it's not very funny at all.
Who's the senior? Who's the junior?
Exactly. and you know, the way that Badaru and Matawale has actually conducted themselves, they have tried to manage it. But, you know, it's not, there have been occasions where you just think this is funny. No, I mean, so I don't think we need that kind of confusion in the Ministry of Defense right now. I think it's important for the president to find another job for Matawale, so that General Musa can do the job of Minister of Defense properly and meet the expectations of Nigerians and in that of the president.
Indeed, because I was just going to say, I mean, I think all of this falls under the question of obstacles. What obstacles you see in its way? I think you've already addressed the very first one, which is the Minister of State. And it's interesting how you say, I think it was Killer that was saying that junior and senior. And it's very interesting. I have heard ministers of state, well, some of them are now ministers, who argue that there is no such thing as a minister of state, that our constitution does not recognize junior or senior minister. And so they carry themselves as equal ministers, even though, you know, we do believe within the media circle, and I think amongst Nigerians, that there is a senior and there is a junior, and that Minister of State will be junior to the minister. But I mean, that's on the one hand. Now I think you've already addressed thoroughly that issue. But then this policy, because a number of things he has said he's going to do. He's going to investigate. He wants to find out what happened in the circumstances with General Uba, who lost his life on the war front, I mean, because the questions the Nigerians are asking. He wants to know what happened in Maga. You know, the governor of Kebbi State has also been quite loud with his allegation that soldiers were withdrawn the morning just before the girls were taken. It's unclear what is happening in Niger State. I do not know if it's also something that he wants to investigate, but we saw the NSA visit a few days ago, you know, Niger State, to assure parents and to say, oh, your children are fine, they'll be back home soon. I'm just a little curious as to how that relationship is going to go. Do you think that there will be any strain between the office of the Ministry of Defense and that of the NSA?
Well, we hope that there shouldn't be any strain. The NSA has its own role, defined, and the Minister of Defense has his own role defined. And I guess they've worked together in the past when General Musa was the Chief of Defense Staff. Nuhu Ribadu was the NSA, Nuhu Ribadu is the NSA, and now General Musa is its minister. I just think that it gives General Musa a little bit more leverage. You have a little bit more leverage in decision taking from the civilian authority, which is higher than the military. So General Musa becoming the minister, it gives him a greater leverage, more authority, to decide what is happening. And if I know Nuhu Ribadu very well, whatever you say about Nuhu Ribadu, Nuhu Ribadu is a patriot. We may think that he should have done, things differently. He should have not supported this and that. We can raise those issues, but Nuhu Ribadu is a patriot. So I'm sure that both of them will work together.
So they will be able to find middle ground.
I believe so.
As patriots of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Well, let us hope that will be the situation as well. And let us switch now to this, because it's still very tied to this security matter. The update on Congressional hearing.
Right.
Only recently, or just yesterday, we heard the United States, the Secretary of State coming out to say that they're going to be looking at visa ban for those who are sponsors of terrorism or those who are sympathizers of, they still maintain a genocide happening in Nigeria.
Right.
And depending on the severity, it could also affect their families as well. Some people say it's as a result of, the threat of Donald Trump that we've seen a flurry of activities leading up to this point, because it was seen that before now we had been managing the situation, but it was seen that this has given us the necessary push to look this in the eye and say what exactly is going on here, coupled with all of the other activities that have been happening, kidnappings of worshippers in Eruku, kidnap of school children, etc., etc. So it was seen that all of that has now pushed us to where we currently are. But what are your thoughts with this, with first our in-house handling? Because whether or not we accept it, we're still experiencing ripples from that threat, so to speak. There's still debates here and there, not just around whether or not there's genocide, but it's now beginning to deepen into conversations around religion in general, which is a major fault line for us. And then also, let us start from there. Do you think that we are seeing this as a problem that we need to tackle very carefully, because it has the potential to further widen the fault lines that we have? Have you seen government being intentional in that regard?
Yeah. Well, we should also, because I know, and if you follow closely, the Americans are unrelenting. Okay, I think today is the 4th of December.
It is.
Yeah. On December 1, the State Department officials met with Nigerians based in the United States, who had a rally in Washington, D.C. The State Department met the leaders of those organizers on Monday. On Tuesday, the U.S. Congress had a hearing, a briefing on the Nigerian situation, led by those that President Trump gave the assignment to go and investigate further what is happening in Nigeria. And on Wednesday, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, announced the visa ban. And one of the more effective things in that visa ban is that it's also going to include the freezing of their assets and their families. So if somebody says, I don't go to America, well, you're going to have a family representative who probably is in the U.S. or who's going there. And on what they are even planning that I know, they are also trying to use the skills and the framework that they have, to be able to extend the sanctions beyond America to even countries that have affiliation and are allies of the U.S., like UAE, to say that, okay, look, if they have any asset there, we're going to reach it because they have a framework to do that. So it is an effective measure, in my view, that can really help us. And like you said, since Donald Trump got involved in this matter, our government have sat up, and it's a good thing. And I just expect the president to use this opportunity to lead, and I must credit him that he has started. Quite frankly, he declared a national security emergency. He brought back General Musa. I think that those two things.
He withdrew police from VIPs.
I think they are firm about that and said that, look, go and use NSCDC, deploy these guys to where they needed, train them. So he has started very well. And it is this kind of behavior that we rally Nigerians behind him. But he has to go further. He has to do other things. He has to come out and make it very clear that we are no longer going to be treating terrorists and bandits with kid gloves. The president has that duty to assure us that this is what has to happen, so that people can, rally behind it. Because look, let me tell you, whatever it is that is going on, if there is no justice, if people feel, let me tell you, whatever it is that is going on, if there is no justice, if people feel that there is no justice, with all these killings, there is nothing else that you will do that they will hear.
Let's go to that meeting that happened on Tuesday.
Yeah.
At the Congressional hearing. There's a senior fellow at the Council of Foreign Relations, Dr. Ebenezer Obadari, and he took the conversation a little further from terrorism to the whole concept of Sharia law and the Hizbah board. And these are things that in Nigeria we've been complaining about. What does this mean? Why does this happen? This doesn't make sense. Does it apply to me? If I'm a Christian living in the North, should this apply to me as well? And these are conversations that have been going on for a very long time.
Yeah.
And he's actually bringing up the conversation again. What do you think should happen going forward? Is that something that the president can take a decisive action on, banning Sharia law or stopping these Hizbah boards that, stop people's consignments of alcohol and burn them in the streets and do a television presentation of all of that? Is that something that should be looked at as well?
Well, I mean, that's a very controversial subject, because, we all knew what happened in the first part of the Fourth Republic between 1999 and 2007, when all of these, I think about 12 northern states adopted Sharia. And, I have interacted with some of the governors, including Governor Yerima of Zamfara, who started it. I said, look, the people of Zamfara State wanted the Sharia law. And he said that was what they asked of him when he was doing the campaign. And he said he had to do what the people wanted to do. So I don't know whether the president has the authority, to come out and say no more Sharia. It's a very dicey subject, and I would rather just want the president and all of us to focus on how we can just unite ourselves as a people, rather than use this opportunity to create more tensions.
It's going to be tricky. Let me tell you why. So yesterday we had a conversation with Majid Dahiru,
right,
on the fact that northern governors had their own meeting. So I think it was last week we're teasing southern governors of doing Ashrabi meeting.
Yeah.
Well, the northern governors didn't do Ashrabi, but they had their own meeting as well. And they took a number of resolutions, one of which was that they're going to ban, they think the federal government should ban mining for 6 months. And they also want to create a board to be able to fund security operations within their region. I think they had this meeting with traditional rulers from the region as well. Majid was of the opinion that, yes, it is a good thing that they've had all of these meetings, but that they're yet to address the root cause of how the North got to this sorry state. And he believes that Islamism is actually at the root of it. He said Islamism is very different from Islam. That Islamism has now provided a fertile ground for the growth of radical Islam that is seeing the sort of extremism that we're seeing across different parts of the North, which is resulting in this wave of insecurity for the North, etc. So do you think that we're going deep enough? I don't know whether we will see a northern governor who will react to that. These days it's very difficult to get a hold of any one of them to even have a thorough conversation with them. But it'll be interesting to get what their views are on what has become of Islam in general across the north. I think it was, and it's very to his credit, whether or not people like it or not, he wasn't afraid of controversial things. Malam Nasir El-Rufai, he was the one who tried to introduce a board to listen to or to vet the sermons that will be preached, whether in a mosque or in a church. We saw how that was kicked against, very firmly. But some people said that, look, where we currently are, we should be where we're actually beginning to vet what it is that our people listen to and the sort of thing that makes it possible for people to want to, go the way of radical Islam.
Yeah. Well, it's up to the leaders in the north, the governors and the thought leaders and all of them to understand that it is not in the interest of the people in the north and not in the interest of Nigerians to have, people militarize their religion, to create an opportunity or to allow an opportunity where people use the religion, to attack, to maim, and to kill, and and to afflict, people, especially in their region, because look, most of the victims of these killings, terrorists and banditry in particular, they are northerners. They are people that live in the region. So the governors have to understand that they have to curb this extremist religious advocacy, in whatever shape or form that it comes up. The governors in the region have that duty, to ensure that it is curbed. And at the federal level, the president has the duty to rally all Nigerians together around the things that we can agree, namely that these killings are despicable, they are evil, and they have to stop.
Are we able to have a conversation on them, or are we papering over the cracks? Are we able to be frank
at the root issues?
At the root issues, because that is basically what has now translated into this talk of no, there's genocide, no, there's no genocide, and people are going all the way back in history to, mark issues of what I would say has been general intolerance, over the years, and it's beginning to show further and further that, look, it would seem that some people have just been quiet all of this time, waiting for a time like this when they believe that, there could be external help, and they're beginning to voice out. And you will see also, you just talked about people militarizing people in their own faith. You see that even the Christians are not beginning. That's why you will find a Reverend Dachomo, when we, a sister program, interviewed him, he was sounding rather very militant. So we're beginning to see those kinds of things. And I'm just wondering what the future is. I mean, this kind of season some people say it might come and go, but what will be the repercussions for our country? What will be the consequences for Nigerian unity when this conversation is over?
Well, so we're already witnessing the consequences. I mean, people are dying. The rate at which people are being abducted. We still have children that have not been released. You hear of attacks here and there. They said that even the bandit leaders, they have moved to Kogi State. I understand that the governor of Kogi State, is very, very frustrated. He has expressed his worry. So the consequences are already there. We can see all the killings. And that's why I said that the northern governors must be very frank with themselves. How are you providing leadership to your people that is causing this kind of violence, eruption of violence all over the place, some of them in the name of Islam? It's their duty, as leaders, not just governors, even the traditional rulers. The traditional rulers have a huge role to play. The religious leaders have a huge role to play. They have to sort out that problem. What the president should do at the federal level is to punish crimes. Is to say that, look, whatever it is, I'm not going to tolerate, massacres. I mean, I know that there is Christian genocide in Nigeria, and there's no point denying it. But that is not the only thing that is happening. There is also all kinds of massacre. I think it was Senator Smatadiemi who explained it, that, look, if people are killing themselves in their own region, where they are culturally, they have cultural affinity and religious affinity, that's a massacre. But when those people move away from their region to another region that has different faith, that have different ethnic affinities, and they assault them, that is genocide. So whether it's genocide or it's massacre, the president has a duty, because he commands the instrument of force, to end it. And we are encouraging him to go further, in doing this. I think there are other things that he needs to do. And I've mentioned one that I think is very important. He has to say that there will be no more cavorting. A lot of donor governors are cavorting with the bandits, that has to stop. And that's the president's duty. And the governors themselves must understand that, look, if you keep on, appeasing these terrorists, these bandits, for whatever reason, you are worsening the crisis and the sufferings of your own people to start with.
Just very quickly, Kayla, let me quickly slip this in, because you just talked about appeasement, and I think the National Assembly tried to make a move on that. It's unclear how far that will go, but it was a bill that was brought forward by no less than the Deputy Speaker, seeking to not just punish the act, but also punish those who negotiate with terrorists. Right. Government officials, it was very clear, government officials who negotiate with terrorists, but also state governments who come up with these amnesty programs without the approval of the federal government. He thinks that that's the way to go. Isn't that something that we should be seeing executive sponsorship and perhaps support for within the National Assembly?
Yeah. I mean, you're right. In the House of Reps, and I think even in the Senate, I think the Senate has also
made certain moves yesterday.
That kidnapping, and I think they actually passed it, that kidnapping.
Act of terrorism.
Act of terrorism. So we are glad, that the National Assembly is moving in the right direction, and you're right, the executive also has to pitch in to say that, look, this is how we are going to have a fair society, a prosperous society, a safe society, by ensuring that these things are, crimes that must be punished, and punished utterly, so that we can have peace and prosperity in our country.
I mean, we're running out of time, but I want you to talk about the Safe Schools Initiative. That's something you were in office when that happened. And I was listening to a contractor, someone who said was a contractor for the Safe Schools program. Right. So there's a Safe Schools Initiative, at least from what I understand. Yeah. There's the initiative and then there's the program.
Right.
And then he said 16 billion was released.
When?
He said early 2023, he said, early 2023. That 16 billion naira was released. Right. So that whole talk about $30 million and all of that, he said that the funding stopped. And because the funding stopped is the reason why that Safe School Initiative is not doing what it's supposed to do. Could you help us elaborate a little bit more on how that happened, seeing as the Senate is about to begin an investigation into this Safe School Initiative?
Well, I mean, I think you said it all. What has happened, and I also tried to investigate this, what has happened is that there hasn't been sufficient funding to the Safe School Initiative and this program since, especially after 2023. I understand that the last funding was from the budget of 2023.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly what happened in 2024 budget, but clearly there has been no release or even any kind of allocation for the initiative in 2025. So that is why that initiative has basically, almost crumbled, because it has to be funded. And we have to, speak to the coordinating Minister of Finance, because it is his name that people mention that where he's the one that has not been made the allocation or made the release. So it's a simple thing that has to happen. I don't think whether we need a serious investigation into that, based on what we hear by the people in charge of the program. They are not being properly funded.
So the Nigerian people who have been thinking, we'll be $30 million is the headline.
Yeah.
The initial was $10 million. They've raised it, and then there's another $114 or $144 billion. Just so people can understand that money hasn't come out.
Yeah, I understand that the last time they got anything was in after the 2023 budget. Probably they got it in 2024. But that's all. Since then there hasn't been any.
Is that something that the president should actually now look at the Safe School Initiative, because I remember at the time when it was launched after the Chibok girls, it was a very good idea.
Yeah.
Global, it's not a Nigerian idea, it's a global idea.
It even had some international backing.
Exactly, so the idea was to make sure that these schools are not places where these bandits can prey on, which is what we're seeing right now. So over 1,000 schools in this country are not safe, according to reports.
Yeah.
Is that something the president should be looking at?
I think the president ought to look at it very seriously, especially in light of the abduction of the schoolgirls. The president needs to instruct the Minister of Finance to release money for this program, because that is what they are saying, that they've not been funded. Perhaps if they were funded, maybe we would have avoided what happened in Kebbi. So the president ought to take it seriously and instruct Mr. Edun, to release money to the program.
Well, Mr. Laula Akande, we could go on and on. I mean, there's so many other things we wanted to take up with you. I mean, we've seen what's happening within the PDP, certificate of expulsion. Kela was saying what she knows is a letter of expulsion. Which one is certificate?
When they expel you from uni, it's letter.
It's just drama.
It's drama.
We wanted to bring up that drama with the PDP, but we don't even have the time for it. We have to thank you.
Thank you so much.
For coming on the program, as always. Mr. Laula Akande is a former presidential aide, and he's also the presenter of Channels Television's Inside Sources, which you can catch tomorrow as well as Sunday. Thank you so much once more.
Thank you so much.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, we're still on this matter of security, and we're going to be joined by a member of the Kauta, Miete Ala Kauta Hori Fulani Sociocultural Association in just a moment. Please stay with us.